farm beyond the River Luo. Part 1. The Bride in the Smoke. I first came to the village of Heishui, deep in Henan Province, during the autumn of 1987. The air was thick with fog and smoke from burning rice stalks. The River Luo wound through the valley like a dull blade, its surface carrying whispers instead of ripples. I had been sent there to survey the land for a new bridge project. The road ended before the village. Beyond there was only the old path, lined with gnarled willows and bones of dead animals. When I arrived, the locals stared as if they had seen a ghost walk upright. Their eyes slid away when I mentioned the old farmhouse by the river, the one I'd rented from the headman. That night, as I unpacked, I heard it for the first time, a woman's laugh, soft, wet, and close to my ear. Then came the dogs. They howled as if something invisible walked through their kennels. One by one, I heard the chains rattle and snap. By morning, the dogs were gone. Only their paw prints remained, leading into the mist toward the riverbank. When I asked the villagers, an old man spat and said, "That house once belonged to Wei Ming and his bride, Lu Xiao. She died there," and he followed not long after. He would say no more. Part 2. The couple that died twice. I found a record of them in the village shrine, among cracked wooden tablets. Wei Ming had been a butcher, strong, quiet, with a face like carved stone. His wife, Lu Xiao, was said to be gentle, too gentle for that place of blood and slaughter. They lived with their animals, a black dog, 2 buffalo, and a small army of pigs and chickens. Wei Ming killed by day and drank by night. But after the wedding, the killing changed him. He began to speak to the animals before cutting their throats, whispering something like a prayer. One winter, the buffalo broke from their pen and ran into the frozen river. The villagers found only one carcass days later, its eyes eaten out. Lu Xiao began hearing hoofbeats at night, circling the house. She told the village women that her husband talked to someone unseen in the slaughterhouse. He would say, "They still remember the sound of my knife." 3 weeks later, Lu Xiao was found hanging from the rafters, her feet bare, the floor beneath her covered in wet straw. Wei Ming buried her behind the house, beside the sty, but he stopped killing. The pigs grew fat, the chickens multiplied, and the dog howled endlessly at the grave. Then, one evening, Wei Ming walked into the pen, slit his own throat, and collapsed beside a sow giving birth. The dog tore at his face until dawn. The villagers burned the farmhouse after that, but the fire went out halfway through, leaving the upper rooms blackened but intact. No one rebuilt it. Until me. Part 3. The Return of the Animals. The second night, I couldn't sleep. The wind from the river carried a smell like rotten meat and wet hay. My lantern flickered, though the windows were shut. Then came the sound of hooves, slow, deliberate, circling the house. I thought it might be the neighbor's buffalo, but when I went out with my torch, the fields were empty. That's when I saw them. Faint shapes in the mist. A black dog, tail stiff, watching me from the river path. Behind it, something larger moved, 4-legged, huge, but wrong in the way it bent. When the torchlight touched it, I realized it wasn't flesh. It was made of straw, bound tight with twine, soaked dark with what looked like blood. It stood still, staring with empty sockets. The dog growled once, and I swear it spoke. "She's waiting." I dropped the torch. The thing moved closer, and the air turned freezing. I ran back inside, barred the door, and listened to the steady rhythm of hooves on the roof. At dawn, I found hoof prints on the ceiling beams, upside down, burned into the wood. Part 4. The Bride's Feast. I decided to leave the next day, but when I went to pack, my suitcase was gone. In its place lay a bundle of raw pig hearts, arranged neatly in a basin of rice. The radio turned on by itself. A woman's voice hummed through the static, an old wedding song from the north, the kind played when a bride leaves her home. I could hear footsteps upstairs, slow and dragging. There was no second floor anymore. The roof had collapsed years ago. Still, I climbed the ladder. At the top, in the attic's half-light, I saw her. Lucio stood before me, her face hidden under a red veil, her dress rotted and wet. In her hands, she held the butcher's knife. Behind her, hanging from the rafters, were the carcasses of animals, dogs, pigs, chickens, all with human eyes. She lifted her veil. Her mouth was stitched shut. Her eyes moved like those of something alive, but not human, glassy, reflecting me upside down. When she spoke, it came from her throat, muffled but clear. "He promised me we'd never kill again, but you brought them back." Then she raised the knife, not toward me, but toward her own chest, and plunged it in. The room screamed. Every animal's mouth opened, voices shrieking in pain and prayer. Blood rained from the beams. I fell backward through the ladder and hit the floor below. When I woke, the house was silent. My shirt was soaked red, but there was no wound. Only a single line carved into the wall beside me. The feast isn't over. Part 5, The River's Mouth. I fled Heishui that morning, but when I crossed the bridge out of the valley, the car stalled. The driver cursed and lifted the hood. From the river below came the sound of bells, dozens, maybe hundreds, jingling softly. I looked down. The water was thick and black, as if filled with ash. Floating on its surface were the bodies of animals, dogs, pigs, chickens, all drifting in a slow circle. In the center stood Wei Ming, his face pale as rice paper, his neck still open. He smiled at me. "She's hungry still." Then the water rose. The dog I'd seen before, its eyes human now, climbed onto the bank and walked toward me. Its mouth opened, and a woman's voice whispered, "Stay, there's no bridge anymore." The driver screamed, and when I turned, he was gone. Only his cap lay on the road, wet and red. The car engine came alive by itself. The headlights flicked on, facing the river, and in their beam, the farmhouse appeared, standing whole again where it shouldn't be. Smoke rose from its chimney. In the window, a woman in a red veil waved slowly, beckoning. Behind her stood shapes, four-legged, shadowed, breathing in unison. Then I heard them again. The hooves, the paws, the clucking, all at once. The world smelled of blood and straw. I turned to run, but the road behind me was gone. Only the river, stretching endlessly, black and wide. The car door opened by itself. I felt something cold slip into my hand. A butcher's knife, its edge wet and trembling. And from the wind, her voice came again, soft and final. "Now it's your turn to feed us." The last thing I remember is stepping toward the water, the sound of hooves behind me, and the red veil rising from the mist like a burning flag. Epilogue: What the River Keeps. They found my notes weeks later, sealed in a waterlogged bag downstream. The bridge construction was halted. No one lives in Heishui now. The valley is empty, reclaimed by weeds and silence. But on foggy nights, truckers crossing the new bridge swear they see a red-veiled woman leading a black dog, followed by buffalo and pigs, all walking through the mist toward the farmhouse that shouldn't exist. Sometimes the engines die as they pass. Sometimes they hear a laugh, wet, soft, close to the ear. And sometimes, if the river's quiet enough, you can still hear the hooves walking upside down.